Good day to you all. It's Lawrence again on this podcast, just to introduce a new topic: the age gap between male and female partners, particularly the large age gap between a male and a female. Why does that spark a lot of controversy in the general population? But it appears that in celebrity circles, it's quite common. You get people like Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and so on, who have had much younger spouses, and over periods of time, particularly more than one marriage after another. And why is it that that hypocrisy is prevalent in society? And why is there a difference between celebrities doing one thing and the general population viewed with suspicion if they do the same thing? Now, the controversy around the age gap is usually less about the number of years and more about what people think and what the age gap represents. For most people, when they see a 25-year-old with a 60-year-old, questions immediately arise, such as, is there a power imbalance? Is one partner financially dependent on the other? Is one partner being manipulated? Are they at very different life stages? Is the relationship based on genuine affection or on money, status, or security? These concerns exist whether the couple are celebrities or ordinary people. That's accepted. And society reacts strongly. Why? Because humans tend to expect couples to be roughly similar age because they often share cultural differences. They're at a similar stage of career and family development. They have similar energy levels and lifestyles. They are likely to age together. However, when the age becomes 15 or 20 or 30-year difference, people naturally wonder how sustainable the relationship will be based on that gap. For example, a 30-year-old may be thinking about raising children while their 60-year-old partner may be thinking about retirement. That difference creates questions that do not arise often in same-age relationships. And why do celebrities get a pass? Because celebrities do not always get a pass, by the way. They're often criticized the same way. Think of a relationship involving people such as Leonardo DiCaprio, Mick Jagger, or Rupert Murdoch, particularly Rupert Murdoch, a plus 90, and his wives have all been around the 30, 40 age gap. The public has frequently commented on their age gap relationships. However, celebrities possess things that ordinary people don't have, which is fame, wealth, social status, access to luxury lifestyles, public relations teams that shape narratives. So many observers assume that these factors are make large age group gaps more understandable, even if they don't approve them. Is there hypocrisy in that? Of course, to some extent, yes. People often judge the same behavior differently depending on who's doing it. A 75-year-old wealthy billionaire marrying a 30-year-old model might be described by some as a personal choice, consenting adults. Yet a retired local mechanic marrying a woman 40 years younger might receive much harsher scrutiny from neighbors. But this reflects a broader tendency in society to treat wealth and famous people differently. Another factor is visibility. Relationships are not necessarily more common. Because the media reports on them, people see the billionaire with a younger spouse, the movie star with a younger partner, the aging rock star with a much younger girlfriend. But millions of ordinary people with small age differences receive no attention. The result is a distorted impression that celebrity age gaps relationships are everywhere. What actually matters most is, and this has been researched, and generally the findings are that the quality of the relationship depends far more on mutual respect, shared values, emotional compatibility, communication, similar expectations about children, money, and lifestyle. So therefore, a age gap marriage can be healthy and lasting. A same age marriage can be toxic and fail quickly. The age gap itself does not determine success. The concern arises when the gap creates large differences in power, life, experience, financial dependence, or personal autonomy. So the public relations is usually a mixture of genuine concern, cultural expectations, envy, moral judgment, and sometimes plain gossip. Celebrities are not exempt from that scrutiny, but their wealth status and visibility often change how people interpret the exact same age gap relationship. Now, if we come to Southern Africa, there's a scenario that occurs where a man who is married but wealthy enough then creates what is known as a small house or a concubine or a second wife. And this is quite common in most African societies. And that age difference of 10 to 20 years between spouses has attracted less attention because historically older men often accumulated wealth, cattle, land, or social status before marrying. Of course, the younger women entered marriage as they reached adulthood and childbearing age. In some communities, polygamy was also culturally accepted, meaning that a man might marry additional wives later in life who were younger than his first wife. It's important to not to generalize here. Modern urban Africans often have views that differ considerably from natural traditions. Many younger men prefer, or young Africans in general, prefer a relationship based on companion, shared education, and similar life stages, just like anywhere else in the world. The economic inequality can also influence relationships. In societies where wealth is concentrated among older men, employment for opportunities for young women are limited, and social mobility is difficult. So therefore, a relationship between an older, wealthier man and a younger woman becomes common. Societies might describe this as an exchange of resources and opportunities for companionship, affection, status, or family formation. This is not unique to Africa. It can be observed in other parts of the world, Latin America, Asia, Eastern Europe. In the Middle East, Islam permits a man to have four wives under certain conditions, provided he treats them fairly and supports them financially. But there's no requirement religiously to the later wives being younger than the first wife. And in practice, age patterns vary across the Muslim world, from Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, Pakistan, and Nigeria, influenced to some extent by local conditions and cultures. In reality, some second, third, or fourth wives are younger, some are widows, some are divorced women, some are close to in age to the husband. The stereotype of an elderly man with several young wives exists but doesn't represent all polygamous marriages. In Latin America, age gap relationships are generally more accepted than in Northern Europe, although large gaps are still subject to comment. In East Asia, such countries as Japan, South Korea, and China, large gaps have become less common as women have gained greater education and economic independence. In South Asia and Southeast Asia, attitudes vary enormously depending on religion, urban versus rural, location, education levels, economic dependence. Now, Western societies are different because they increasingly emphasize gender equality, individual autonomy, equal power with relationships, shared decision making. As a result, people often view very large gaps through the lens of power dynamics rather than tradition. An African elder might look at a 25-year gap and see a successful man supporting a younger family. A Western observer looking at the same couple would say, does one partner have too much influence over the other? Neither perspective emerges in a vacuum. Each reflects different societal histories and values. Obviously, the trend worldwide is that as countries become wealthier and women gain more access to education, um, average spousal age gaps tend to shrink. This does not eliminate age gap relationships, but it makes them less common because women become less economically dependent on older men. The difference is that is more cultural than hypocritical. So one society sees as a normal family structure, others may see as unusual. The debate reflects different ideas about marriage itself, whether it's primarily an economic institution, a family alliance, a religious arrangement, or a partnership between two individuals. So that is the contention that we have, and the issue that I described earlier of small houses and outside wife and the sidekick second family, they become everyday language in Southern Africa because the practice is sufficiently common. What's interesting is that these arrangements exist in a gray zone between formal polygamy and outright infidelity. In many African societies, a wealthy man who wanted multiple partners would often do so openly through polygamy. Modern urban life, particularly Christian influence and state marriage laws, have changed the attitude and made formal polygamy less common, particularly among education urban populations. So the small house scenario can be viewed as a modern adaptation of older patterns. The relationship exists, the children may be acknowledged, resources are shared, but the second union lacks full legal or social recognition. And the first wife normally tolerates it because the family and children's stability is an issue, financial security, social standing, cultural expectations, religious beliefs about marriage, and the lack of confidence that divorcing the man would improve the situation. In most cases, the wife opposes the arrangement but feels she has limited leverage. In others, there may be a reluctant accommodation where everyone understands the reality, even if nobody openly celebrates it. So, one paradox is that in some African contexts, the small house may be unofficial but widely known. In many Western countries, the same behavior may be publicly condemned and still occurs. Another factor is that there is a generational difference. Many younger urban men and women increasingly reject the idea that a successful man is expected to have multiple partners. You may find some competing views within the same society. The traditional view would be that multiple partners are inevitable and a consequence of male success. The modern view is that fidelity is an essential part of an equal partnership. And with that, I look to the future where these arrangements, if you like, of multiple partners, whether in a polygamous or unofficial marriage, start to diminish over time, and influence of Western values and economic success of the women in those societies. Long may that continue. Hopefully, we'll talk again in the next podcast. For now, have a good day and we'll catch up. Thank you.